let's get into some Gators football talk. A lot of transfer portal confusion happening. Adrien Maddox commits to Florida on our live show.
Yeah, we were live.
It was a Sunday. He commits to Florida. We talk about it. We like the addition. Felt it was a really good addition for the secondary as a whole, not just one specific position at corner, star, or safety. But then 2 or 3 days later, I think it was on Wednesday, he ends up flipping to Georgia. It's not often you see transfer portal players flip, especially within like 3 days like that. So it was definitely a surprise. And I'm not really sure what to take of it because I don't really know if Adrien Maddox was like a big game. I don't think he was going to be like a big game changer. Like it's not guaranteed that he was going to start if he was playing star over Sharif Denson or a possible returning Aaron Gates. So I don't know how much the staff could have done or should have done to try to keep him from going to Georgia because their star position, they do have Jonel Aguero, who is starting. And I guess they probably just like offer him more money.
Probably yeah. I mean, that's kind of the reality of the situation now, isn't it? I mean, I think like what you said is true. Like you don't see this kind of thing very often. I think part of the reason for that is because these guys as transfers just they know what they want. You know, they're not looking at this like a recruit, like trying to be wowed, like where's home? Like they have a pretty clear checklist of like, I want this in a coach. I want this in, you know, talent development, you know, all that, you know, this and this level of championship contender, like all these things are, I think they have a better idea of. So once they make their decision, I think it's more firm. But as we've also seen in high school recruiting too, now when these guys sign, there's nothing binding about it. You know, they're not signing a national letter of intent anymore. They're signing a financial aid agreement, which they can get out of it pretty much any time. So, you know, I think you're just going to see that, you know, I'm sure Florida's going to do it to someone else at some point too, where, you know, they committed to another school and you come in with a late offer for more money, which, I mean, I don't know that that's what happened here. Maybe there were other factors, but it's hard not to kind of just assume that's what happened here. I would say. And I think you're right. Sorry, go ahead.
You were saying about the transfer portal, you can just pretty much enter. Even if you don't enter the transfer portal, we just saw with the Wisconsin safety, Xavier Lucas, who enrolled with Miami. He just he left Wisconsin, man. So he couldn't enter the transfer portal because he signed an agreement, and so Wisconsin was blocking him from entering the transfer portal. I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff behind the scenes we don't know about.
Well, they're alleging tampering,
tampering, and he just left Wisconsin and enrolled at Miami. Didn't enter the transfer portal. He just didn't enroll in classes at Wisconsin, or I mean. I've always wondered, like, is it just the transfer portal, just the title of it? Or because I just was like, okay, you're just not going to classes there, you're going to classes there. But I guess the transfer portal is like an official thing where you don't, like, not enroll, just enroll from school and you just transfer. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. Well, that's what's going to be decided in court. But I mean, I think to me, that's a fascinating legal proceeding because, I mean, what the NCAA basically did in their like temporary ruling was come out and say the transfer portal doesn't exist. Like it doesn't matter. You can just unenroll from a school at any time and re-enroll at a different school. There's no need to go through the process of entering the transfer portal. So like if that holds up, I think the transfer portal is pretty much going to become obsolete when guys realize they can just unenroll and be a complete free agent without going through the hoops of the process that the NCAA wants you to. So we'll kind of see what happens there.
I do think to like the social media, like the 247, the sites, I think you'll still be considered a transfer portal because Xavier Lucas is still considered a transfer from Wisconsin to Miami.
Sure.
So that's why I'm wondering, like, what is the transfer portal like an official title? Like,
it's a database is what it is.
Okay.
And it's a database that you enter yourself in, and coaches and personnel people can literally go in and see position by position, school by school, who all is in the transfer portal. But you don't have to enter that database as of what the NCAA just said a few days ago. So.
But I do wonder, what's the recruiting rules around if you're not in the portal? Like Lucas just unenrolled from Wisconsin and signed with Miami. When he unenrolls, can Miami recruit him? Like because there's obviously the tampering. Like I'm talking in a legal sense. Can they like get him on a visit? Can they talk to him? That's what I wonder.
That's a good question. I mean, I'd say from my understanding of what the NCAA said, it seems to me that once you're unenrolled, you can do whatever you want.
That's
kind of how it seems. I mean, again, this is an active legal situation, so this could change, at any point, depending on how these lawsuits play out. I mean, obviously, Wisconsin's not happy, and a lot of the Big Ten, and I mean, they're going to have a lot of support from programs because no one wants this to be able, none of these schools want this to be able to happen, whether it's good or bad.
Not at all.
They don't want to see players be able to just unenroll without going through the process of the portal.
Yeah. Again, back to the Gators, we lost to Adrien Maddox. We did replace him pretty quickly. We got Michael Carway Jr., who's a Southern Miss transfer. He's one of those players that received the benefits of the Diego Pavia lawsuit of giving another year of eligibility to those JUCO players. Michael Carway was a JUCO player before, went to Southern Miss. This last season would have been his last season of college football, but thanks to the new ruling, he has another year. He is 6'2". I have it right here. 6'2", 195. Yeah, 6'2", 195. Played mostly corner for Southern Miss, but I do suspect that he's going to also play star, corner, safety if we need him to. Don't think he is set to play at that corner position. PFF wise, wasn't really the highest graded player, but actually pretty poorly graded. But obviously PFF isn't the defining feature. But we're looking at a player that has plenty of experience in college football. And, when you're trying to get someone who's primarily going to be a backup, it's going to be hard to go get those players that could go and start for other schools. I mean, if you go and look at some other people we were targeting, like Bishop Fitzgerald, who ended up going to South Carolina, and his teammate Brandon Sisse went to South Carolina. Bishop Fitzgerald went to USC, I think. Like, those are places where they can both start almost guaranteed. But if they come here, you got Sharif Denson, who has been on this program for going on his third season now, and Aaron Gates, who, if Aaron Gates is healthy and playing at his best, he's the guaranteed starter, no questions asked. So it is a bit more of a risk to come here. But I do like the addition. Although, if we do get into a situation like we were last year, where Jason Marshall got hurt, Devin Moore got hurt, which is almost a given at any point in the season. Jakeem Jackson ended up getting hurt. Even Cormani was hurt, and we had Dijon Johnson playing through. What was his injury? I know he had surgery earlier in the month, but I mean, you had everyone in that secondary hurt. Not gonna really push the blame at anyone. Sometimes that just happens to teams. But if you do get into a situation like that, I don't know if Michael Carway is gonna be someone that is like trusted that can play like that. Because what if instead of being a Triquez Bridges, he's DJ Douglas? I mean, it wouldn't look too good.
Yeah, kind of limited experience with Carway. Looks like this was kind of his only season as a full-time starter. Started like 4 games with 11 appearances in 2023. Yeah, I mean, not absurdly productive. Like you said, didn't grade out super highly. I mean, I think you're right that this is I think any transfer, and this was, I mean, it's not like Maddox was a guy that necessarily looked like he was going to come in and be an instant impact SEC guy either. I think all these positions you were recruiting for in the secondary and the transfer portal, aside from like if you had gotten like a very high level safety, not sure that player was really like there, then they whiffed on. Like I'm not even sure they were in the mix for anyone like that. Maybe a high level safety comes in and starts for you, but yeah, I think mostly what you're looking for in the secondary is depth. And I mean, I don't hate the idea of taking on a corner with, an older player with starting experience. I will say, to be fair to him, just on a pretty bad team and on a pretty bad Southern Miss team in general.
They went 1-11, right?
Yeah, they weren't good the year prior to that either. They've had a rough few years of it. So I mean, we'll see. I mean, I think like you said, it's important to have depth at corner because this is a position where Florida's just gotten really banged up, and it's been a problem for Devin Moore throughout his career. I think it's a position where if you stay healthy, you don't really worry about it, but you need bodies just in case you don't. So, I mean, I think that's the positive spin here is he's a guy that has starting experience, that is an older player that could probably come in and handle that for a couple weeks if need be. Now, if Devin Moore or Dijon were to suffer a serious injury earlier in the season, I don't know if I'd love the prospect of Michael Carraway being like your starting outside corner, for most of the season.
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at with him. Then we also ended up getting another transfer. There was also this Sean Purdy news that we glossed over.
Yeah.
He ends up getting released from his NIL agreement.
Yeah.
What is it? The
financial aid agreement.
Financial aid agreement. So it was reported that he had believed that he could start over DJ Lagway, which
someone got in this kid's ear, if that's true, and gave him some really bad info.
Which I'm inclined to actually believe might be the case, because there was a lot of talks before that came out that Georgia was the one trying to get him in the transfer portal.
Mm-hmm.
And
he ended up going to Wake, didn't he?
Yeah, so he ended up going to Wake Forest, where I believe he is going to be the starter. Because I know they had Hank Bachmeier as their starter this past year.
Yeah.
And I think that was the senior season.
I think it has to be. Hank Bachmeier's been playing college football for like 9 years. He's got.
I remember when he was a true freshman playing against FSU. So he's definitely he's done. That was the senior season.
Yeah.
So he's gonna probably start at Wake Forest unless he gets beat out by someone else. But it does lead me to believe that he did think that he could start.
Yeah. I mean, I will say that like the addition of Purdy kind of didn't make sense to me from the beginning. Like the whole time I was like, why is this kid coming here? Like he was pretty good. He was it was like was a pretty good true freshman starter at Charlotte. And it's not like Lagway is going into a draft eligible season where it's like you sit behind him for a year and then you're the guy. Like if he thought he could start over DJ Lagway, like I don't know what gave him that impression. Maybe which that's just so crazy to me that it makes me feel like there has to be more to the story than that. But I think there had to have been some miscommunication in some regard, because someone lied. Someone's lying here, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm not saying it's him. I'm not saying it's the Gators. There's something that doesn't add up here about the situation.
Yep. I do think the Gators ended up in a pretty good situation afterwards, though. We get Harrison Bailey a transfer. If you're a Gator fan, you are familiar with this name. He was a highly rated recruit coming out of high school from the state of, I'm not sure which, from Georgia.
Or Georgia,
went to Tennessee.
Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, he ended up going to Tennessee, really highly rated. I remember a lot of buzz about this kid going into the 2021 season, I believe. Didn't really do anything. 4 touchdowns, 2 picks in 2020. Didn't really do anything in 2021. He ended up transferring to UNLV, where he got stuck as a backup, and then been with Louisville for the past 2 seasons, getting backup playing time. He did start the bowl game that Louisville played and won, where he had 3 touchdowns and 164 yards, no interceptions. So for what you're getting with a backup, I mean, that's a pretty good game right there.
Like as Ultra Gator says here, this was a really hard position to recruit for. Like, you're not playing unless there's injury. That's why I thought the whole time I was very impressed with them landing Deshaun Purdy, because I was like, that's about as good a pickup as you're going to get for that backup quarterback spot. Ended up being a little too good to be true. I think this is fine. I think if Harrison Bailey had to make a start, I think it would be better than what we saw from Aiden Warner. And if something serious happens to Lagway, the season's over anyway. So I don't think there was anyone you were going to get in the portal that would have, kept the season on track if something were to happen to Lagway. So I think this is fine to me.
And if I'm not mistaken, Florida now has 3 of the 4 highest rated out of high school recruits, QB recruits in the state, like of us, Miami, FSU, UCF, and then obviously the other ones. We have 3 of the 4 highest, with Lagway obviously being the highest rated. Then I think it's Bailey, and then Carson Beck at Miami, and then it's Tramel Jones, I think.
So was Bailey really a better recruit than Carson Beck?
I believe Harrison Bailey was in the 60s.
I mean, he was a big time recruit. No doubt about it. I remember that. I remember Florida recruiting him like early in his high school process. I just didn't realize he was that high.
Harrison Bailey on the composite was 99th.
Wow.
And I believe Carson Beck was in the hundreds.
I think you're right then. Yeah, I don't think Carson Beck was a top 100 prospect.
Carson Beck composite was 254.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah,
that's crazy.
Trammell. Wait, is Trammell higher than Beck? What is Trammell?
Trammell's in the 200s. I'm pretty sure.
Trammell Jones is 237. No, we have the three highest then.
That's pretty funny.
He's higher than Beck was. Unless I'm missing someone from Miami, because I know
was
they
Emory Williams a big time recruit. I don't really remember.
Emory Williams is like in this 500s. He was a 3-star.
Okay.
I know they have the one Luke Nickel. I think it is. I think he's in the 300s. So, yeah, I guess we have the three highest, which is insane to think.
That is crazy.
But yeah, so, going back to Harrison Bailey, it's just someone that Lagway does end up getting hurt. He's not gonna tank. He's not gonna be the reason your season tanks. Like the Texas game when we had to put in. Sorry. When we had to put in the Yale transfer, I just completely forgot his name. Aiden Warner. You know, he kind of tanks. He's part of the reason we lost that game. Like he's probably.
I would say he's part of the reason we lost that game.
He had an interception that gave Texas a touchdown.
Yeah.
Part of the fumble. I mean, I think it was a bad handoff on the fumble at Jacoby.
I mean, him playing better, we still would have lost the game, but he did not play nearly a good enough game for that to even be competitive now.
Yeah. But if you have Harrison Bailey in there, I don't think it's going to be as bad. Are you possibly talking if you replaced, say the game goes the same way defensively and everything against Georgia, if you have Bailey in over Warner, how different does that game look? Because that's a tight game with 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I mean, I think it could. I think you could sell me on it being different. I mean, Harrison Bailey has not really done anything too impressive when he's gotten the chance to play. So, like, I don't want to be overselling him here, but I mean, Aiden Warner was a walk-on at Yale. Like, he's a walk-on at Florida. Like, this is just versus a top 100 recruit who obviously has had a disappointing career, but I mean, guys are rated that high for a reason. Talent doesn't always translate to success, but if you're taking two players that haven't proven to be successful, give me the more talented one of the two, which is where we're at with Bailey.
Yep. So moving on from that, this seems to be the end of our was this the fall transfer portal class or winter?
The winter class.
So this seems to be the end of that. We do have one roster spot left, I believe, which I assume we're going to pick up in the spring portal when the spring portal opens.
What about would adding Onus count, or are you counting?
You're right.
Adding
Onus would be the last one. Is Harrison Mertz 2.0? People don't give Mertz enough credit for.
Yeah, if Harrison's as good as Mertz, that would be like that would be an amazing transfer pickup as a backup quarterback.
But I do suspect that once we get into the spring, we're probably going to lose like one of the running backs. I'd be surprised if we didn't. There's probably going to be also one or two other guys that leave. And I think that what we're going to target, probably a defensive tackle, specifically a nose tackle, pending on the injury news of like Jamari Lyons. I think that's a big factor in that. There's been reports of Fletcher Westfall, like them believing he is the guy at left or at tackle, whether that's left or right. I would expect right tackle, but which leads me to believe that we aren't going to target starting tackle in the spring portal, like we believe we would in this portal cycle. And then elsewhere, possibly another corner or DB.
I'm surprised they didn't add a true safety at any point in this. If not a starter, just a guy that can be in there and compete and be a body. That's a little surprising to me. But
yeah, I think us getting two safeties in the recruiting class, both Hayward, Laganza Hayward, and
that's true. Hilton Stubbs,
kind of changed things a little bit, but. Because you also then have Castell, who's been a 2-year starter. You have Bryce Thornton, who's now started in multiple games over the past 2 seasons and looked pretty good. You have those two, plus Gregory Smith. Do you only have 5 safeties? Who am I forgetting? Oh, Josiah Davis. But I believe he's a special teams specialist. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think he's going to play a big part in the road. I mean, I'm not even sure Gregory Smith's going to play a big part.
I know people who really like Gregory Smith.
Okay.
They think that if Castell doesn't keep with that improvement that we saw at the end of this past season, that Gregory Smith is someone who could end up like taking that spot. There's also the report of Asta Turner trying to get a medical red shirt. Not sure if he returns to Florida, though.
That's what I was about to say. I think he probably would get that. I'm not sure he's coming back if he does.
Yeah, probably go down. I mean, he played one half of football, so I can't really say how good or bad he was because a lot of players on the defense looked bad.
Yeah.
But with that,
if you judged everyone just by the first half of the Miami game, we have the worst defense in America.
Yeah. But with the young guys we have on the defense, and coming off that injury, I don't know if it's going to be a good sight for him at Florida. But you have anything else you want to add to the transfer portal from this cycle? Maybe a future receiver we might go after?
I mean, I think how aggressive we are in the spring is really just going to depend on the attrition. I think there's been an element of frustration for me with the way they've approached the portal in the winter, like not necessarily, still being a little bit slow on the jump in terms of the guys that they're going after, targeting more role players and depth guys than instant impact players. That's frustrating. I will say, like, they have been battling limited roster spots. Like they've been really like having to be selective on who they take in this portal cycle. So I get it. I mean, I think it's fair to expect there's going to be more attrition in the spring. How much obviously is like how many guys leave after spring ball. It's going to determine how aggressive they are in the spring cycle. But I mean, I'd kind of say that, I mean, I'm not, never say never, because the Gators got Elijah Badger after the spring last year. And he ended up being a really impactful player, obviously. So I'm not saying that it's a complete, finished product, but I think the odds that you're going to add many guys in the spring that are going to be major impact, probably not super high, maybe only one or two guys that do that. So the long-winded point I'm trying to make here is I think what you're looking at is more or less the team that's going to be taking the field in first week of September or whatever against Long Island. So I think we're getting pretty close to kind of having a decent idea of where this team is at.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we also got Ricky Pearsall in that spring portal cycle.
May 21st, I can't remember, but you might be right.
He inserted in April.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Interesting.
They've had a pretty good
Arizona State receivers, yeah.
Yeah. So there is that. We have had pretty good spring portal cycles. There's also someone else we got in last year's portal cycle, if I'm not mistaken. Let me try to figure that out.
Was Gums a late edition?
I don't think it was Gums. I'm pulling it up right here. Oh, take me. Trying to load. So with the addition of Onus Konambani, which we expect to happen, that would put us at
85, right?
85. Crap. Whoops.
In terms of how many we're going to lose, like I just truly can't like give you an estimate there. I mean, it's going to happen because spring is where a lot of position battles get decided. So you're going to see guys that lose battles enter the portal. I think probably pretty fair to expect that you're not going to lose major impact guys in the spring. It's going to be more depth guys that are not in a great spot in terms of seeing the field. But in terms of a number, that's just hard for me to, guesstimate right now.
So depending on how you want to look at it, it was Jason Zandamela.
Oh, okay.
That's who it was, yeah. And Cormani. It was both of them.
Speaking of Cormani, didn't he just get put on scholarship?
He did.
Cool. Good for him.
Yeah, I was gonna say good for him. George Gums was January. Yeah, he was January committed. He actually committed to Cincinnati before. Oh wait, no. That's interesting. I think 247 has this wrong. Because unless he just left Cincinnati to go back to Northern Illinois. Because
I don't think he ever played for Cincinnati.
Oh wait, no, yeah, okay. So we flipped him from Cincinnati.
He was a portal commit for Cincinnati and then flipped to Florida. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So hey, we were talking about Adrien Maddox. That's one flip.
Yeah, right there. So we can do that to other teams too. It just sucks when it's Georgia doing it to us.